Okay, everyone, the mid-chapter is coming. We need something to put out for the Dead by Daylight community. What do we got? Oh, I got one. Let's add another overpowered perk that changes the game with as little effort as possible. Let's preview a new gameplay update that probably shouldn't have made it past testing that's just going to get canceled anyways. Okay. I mean, that'd be in line with things that we've done before. Does anybody have anything new? Brand, do you have any ideas? Oh, me? Oh, I don't know. Maybe we try listening to the community, maybe. Yeah, listen to the community. Yeah, listening to the community. That's a great idea. Probably should have been the first thought, huh? Hello everyone, another dev stream is upon us, and this one is absolutely huge. Massive gameplay changes are coming to Dead by Daylight, and for once, they're actually quite exciting, and instead of being terrified, I'm actually kind of looking forward to them. So let's go ahead and get into it. Firstly, I want to cover the biggest change that is coming out of this dev stream, and that being the new diminishing returns mechanic. This is actually something I mentioned a while ago, because this is something that we already have on generators. If you've noticed, when people get on gens, a little red bar appears, because there is a diminishing return to individual survivors stacking on a generator. I had suggested a while ago that we start applying this debuff to other things in the game to try and mitigate things that were obviously way too cheesy and way too powerful. And finally, they're doing it. And what are they doing it exactly to, you may be asking? They're doing it to heal speeds, repair speeds, gen regression, haste, and hindered so far. They also added they're going to be able to differentiate between like certain items and killer powers, so you probably don't need to worry about that. Honestly, I think this one is an absolute win because some of the most problematic aspects of Dead by Daylight come down to facing perks, not people. So much so that I made an entire rant video about it. You can go check that out over there. A lot of the time, this is because certain perks play off of each other in a way that leaves little room to counter, and it just becomes very naturally frustrating to play the game for long periods of time because of this. But with this new mechanic, you can't really cheese a full gen rush or force slowdown build anymore without seeing dramatically reduced progress. This will not only allow for our games to feel less frustrating and lame feeling, but also allow the devs to make stronger individual perks and more individually unique perks because they don't have to worry about how it will interact with other perks because of this mechanic. However, I do want to address the elephant in the room here. Many of the uber problematic perks in the game right now aren't really problematic because of stacking. A perfect example of this is Hyperfocus Stakeout Fast Track. If this diminishing returns mechanic doesn't end up applying to skill checks, then this is still a very, very nasty, cheesy combo that you can run in the game of Dead by Daylight right now. Another perfect example is Sprint Burst Vigil. It's not really two perk stacking that makes it really obnoxious. It's Vigil taking away the balancing factor of Sprint Burst more easily than it should be. I've seen a lot of people say that because of this change doesn't really matter. And I'd say that's just completely wrong because it eradicates a lot of the issues that are in Dead by Daylight, even if it leaves out some of them. Think about if somebody brings like Built to Last, a toolbox, Prove Thyself Deja Vu, stuff like that. All of that is going to be less potent than it was before. It is a net positive that's going to help us overall. And I would dare say that this actually makes it easier to look at those individual moments of bad combos like Sprint Burst Vigil, like Hyperfocus Stakeout, if we don't have to worry about this massive perks in the background that are stacking with each other and creating issues. Instead, they can hyperfocus on problem areas without having to worry about this big, massive amount of perks that are a problem looming over them. It allows them to have more time and focus instead of having to worry about so much at the same time. So yeah, don't get it twisted. This is a big net positive for the game that will help, even if it's not in the exact ways that you want. I'm very happy for this upcoming change, and I think it will result ultimately in more positive changes for the game overall. Speaking of balance, the long-awaited tackling of killer bottlenecking is finally happening. Yes, you heard that right. Blight and somewhat Nerfed are finally being nerfed. You heard me right. Blight is going down to a 110 speed killer and gaining the ghoul style limiter where when they kick a pallet, they can't rush immediately. Nerfed is getting more of a slap on the wrist because of getting their lunge duration down from 30% down to 10%, which isn't as drastic, but it's still going to make a big dent. Players have asked for this for a very, very long time because while Blight is a traditionally loved character by the Dead by Daylight community, the problem is that he has bottlenecked killer design for a very, very long time. If you have a lot of characters that aren't so great in the C or D tier like Dead by Daylight has, it would be a smart and wise decision to just buff the killer role overall. This will make characters like Ghostface and Trapper far more tolerable to play. However, you can't quite do that because if you give the killer role in general buffs, that means Blight is going to be buffed, and Blight is already a lot, and he's going to become a superhuman if you give him just flat out base buffs for no reason. So this is why we've had a lot of situations where we can't quite fix the killer role overall because we're just so worried about what we'll do with those specific characters and how they will go from super strong to invincibly strong. This even extends also to perks. I am sure a lot of you guys remember that Wesker's Teachable Awaken Awareness, came out and it was a really good perk, but because Nurse was using it in tandem with Starstruck back when her attacks counted as M1s, it made it to where we had to nerf the perk to make it more fair just because of Nurse's existence in the game. And even though Nurse had gotten that fair nerf in the past, we still haven't gone back and readjusted that perk, so it also hurt perk design as well. So in order to finally have more of the killer roster actually feel good to play on average, these characters needed hits so they could stop inhibiting our ability to make those characters feel better. Also, this isn't just like something I'm making up and is just conjecture based off of like good faith and optimism. This is actually something that they said that they are doing in this dev stream. Specifically, the characters Bubba, Doctor, Demogorgon, Dredge, Ghostface, Wesker, Unknown, and Springtrap are all getting buffs in the upcoming mid-chapter as well. I know a lot of these characters are really well beloved by the community, and hey, I used to secondary demo. I got them all the way up to P70, but the reason I stopped playing him is because I just felt really exhausted dealing with a character that feels super outdated compared to all the really strong stuff that exists in the game right now. So maybe after that update, maybe I'll go back to playing Demogorgon, and that's really exciting. I really love to hear that, so W change as well. And to keep the W train moving, one of my criticisms of the aura color changes was despite how nice that it was missing a lot of crucial aura components that were still uncustomizable. However, they're adding much more to this as well. They're adding surface marked and highlighted elements. They're adding killer object auras like Xenomorph's control stations, which I think is really cool. Also, I found out through this dev stream, Diego, one of the devs of the game, main Xenomorph. It was talking up Xenomorph live on stream. I love to see that. Homie, Diego, if you have some sort of any sort of social media presence, I would love to talk to you about the Xenomorph because, man, that made me so happy and so proud to see my boy being repped live on the dev stream. But the point being is this is an awesome extension of the aura color change update that they did, and I hope they continue to add things to this for complete customizability. Furthermore, there's another huge change coming down the pipeline here, and that being min-match. When you hit the tab button and see the status screen, you will be able to see teammate perks now. Now I'm going to lose some of you because I know I have a very killer main heavy audience, but if you care more about the health of the game and not just your role, you're going to stay and have a great time because this is awesome. Because the problem is that Solo queue Survivor is to the bottom end of play what Blight is to the top end of play. A lot of the reasons that a lot of Survivor perks are so autopilot and so strong individually, even though it's a team game, is because they are trying to balance with solo queue in mind. They're trying to think about, well, if you have essentially what is, if we're going to put it in layman's terms, a big nerf by not having communication, not having understanding of what the rest of your team is doing, then we have to make sure the perks are super potent so you can stand a chance. And that's why we get really overloaded perks like Vigil, like Fast Track, etc. And this is where we end up in situations where these perks then become weaponized by the 3 or 4 man Swifts because they are designed for one person to have a big impact on the game, but are run by 3 or 4 people, it just blows the entire match balance out of the water. So this change makes solo queue more tolerable, which helps cut out the bottom end outlier of balancing, meaning that nerfing and balancing the perks that they've added to smooth that over can actually be done without worrying about how it will affect solo queue because it's not as bad as it used to be. This of course doesn't just like automatically fix solo queue, but it does improve it a lot, which is a good direction. I will say a major worry that there has been out there about this update, which is totally valid, is that when you check this little status screen in the middle of the game, it does show the killer icon, which means you're able to check what killer you're facing. It definitely looked like it was displayed in the dev stream that this would be available at the beginning of the game, and that put a lot of people into a very, very fearful state, and rightfully so, especially the stealth killer community. But Mandy actually clarified on the forums that they have the ability to adjust this, and they're planning to add some sort of like delay to this. I don't know if it's just going to be a timer or if it's going to be when the first chase starts, but stealth killers, you are safe, you are fine. They did clarify this, thankfully. Also, small W here briefly, they're adding a new player helper with the progress bars to make them more evident when your bar is going slowly or when it's going fast, which will definitely be needed more since they're adding the diminishing returns mechanic, so it needs to be more clear when you're under the effect of it, and also will help new players in general. Finally, to get to some negative points, let's talk about good old 2v8. You guys all know that I'm absolutely just tired of 2v8. I know a lot of us are, and I think I don't know, I think I'd be less harsh on it if it weren't the one of the only 2 game modes we get outside of seasonal events. It's just Chaos Shuffle, 2v8, Chaos Shuffle, Chaos Shuffle, 2v8, 2v8, Chaos Shuffle. It's just like, I'm over it. It's so just old. It's gotten so old and so stale, and they're adding less and less to the mode that it's just kind of like the same thing over and over with maybe one new character, and it's just like, it's gotten so stale. I'm just not a fan anymore, and I hate what it does to queue times. However, they did provide some updates about this mode. Oni will be getting some nerfs, which as somebody who mains Oni in in 2v8. I totally get it. I feel like compared to other characters I play, I really bulldoze matches way too easily as this character all the time. I'm having a great time, but I do feel like, maybe I could be a smidge weaker. If they overdo it on the nerfs, obviously I'll be upset, but if as long as it's just like a little, you know, tweaking things and not necessarily nerfing them to the ground, I'm fine with that. Also, cool thing is that Deathslinger is getting a buff, which they definitely need, because being a 110 character that can't throw like hatchets across the map like Huntress can, you're really weak in this mode because there's like 8 survivors and the maps are ginormous. So you just feel far weaker, and you're just a gimmick character to hold other survivors in place while your insta-down killer gets a down. That's about Deathslinger's function right now in 2v8. So giving him a little bit more independence, I would definitely appreciate that. Also, a fun thing, if you solo queue in 2v8, now when you're in a cage, you can press a button to teleport yourself across the map as if you had filled up with your anti-camp. I think this is nice because one of the only things that can kind of go wrong in 2v8 is your teammates kind of being silly and not knowing how to play the game. And a lot of the time, despite there being 8 people, you get left to second stage or worse in this mode, which is wild to say, but at least you have some sort of like defense against that. You can't choose where you go, so I think hopefully that'll balance it out, but once again, some of those things we're just gonna have to see. Now I hear you saying, Bran, you said this was a negative point section. You had some positive in there. Yep, we're getting to the negative part right now because, wow, the devs announced some concerning things about 2v8 that kind of make me feel not great and kind of just almost clock out of 2v8 entirely for its future. And that being that they did announce that they're looking for characters to add to 2v8, and they are looking specifically for characters that are well liked by the community on both sides. And they even said as well that they don't want characters that are disliked by the survivor community in 2v8. So they're actively asking you, who do you not want to see in 2v8 as well? This is quite awful, in my opinion. I imagine being excited for your favorite character to eventually come to 2v8, especially if you're somebody like me who, like, 2v8's feeling really stale and it wasn't too amazing for you in the first place, besides just playing with friends sometimes. And now you realize, oh, I made a character that's not universally liked by the survivor community. Guess I'm just never going to see them come to 2v8 now. That's great. That's excellent. This is really sad to hear, and honestly, as somebody who mains the Xenomorph, I don't feel like I'm ever going to see my character come to 2v8 now, because the Xenomorph doesn't have a very good reputation among the survivor community. And if that's the metric at which they're adding people to 2v8, I don't think the IP is really going to pull its weight. I think people are going to be like, no, they're unfair, and I'm never going to play Xenomorph in 2v8. So great, awesome. I just feel entirely excluded from the mode already, as if the free health states, the insta sprint burst, the insta heals were already not warding me away enough as a killer player to play 2v8. Now there's just for all of us, not even just me with Xenomorph not being fun, but a lot of people who play characters that are ill-perceived by the survivor community, there's just a chance that we will never get our character in the mode, just based on mob rule. And I don't think that's a good way to go about deciding who gets to 2v8, like, at all. And to further rub salt in the wound, Legion is confirmed to not be coming back to 2v8 permanently. To throw a behavior a bone here, to be fair, they did say they really tried to find a version of Legion that worked in 2v8 mode, and I suspect this is probably a reason that something weirdly bled into Legion on 4v1 that resulted in them being kill switched. That's probably them finagling with that on the back end. That's just a tinfoil hat theory, though. But they did try, and for that much, I can be like, thank you for at least trying. Thank you for at least trying to find a way to make this work. However, the end result is still the same, so I still have to be critical here that a character was yeeted from 2v8 based on mob rule, and honestly, that doesn't really sit well with me. If anything, this past year, we've been discovering the reason that many players dislike certain characters in the game of Dead by Daylight is because of shortcomings on their end, and not necessarily things that are objectively wrong or unhealthy about the character. I just don't feel like this is a good metric to decide to exclude characters from 2v8 is if they're just subjectively liked or disliked. The TLDR here is that it feels like 2v8 updates are just going to be based around player entitlement and not thinking about cool combinations or what would be exciting. It's just, are we checking the boxes on player rulebooks? And I just don't like that at all. We do get some icing on the 2v8 crap cake, though, because the play while you wait feature, which is pretty nice, is coming to 4v1. So when those queue times get inevitably really bad because of 2v8 and 4v1, and it's every other month arrival that is inevitable every time, at least you have something to do other than just sitting in queue. So that's cool. However, aside from some minor stuff, that's all for the April dev stream. So was this dev stream any good, and what rating would I give it? 10 being the best they possibly could have done. They knocked it out of the park, and 1 being abysmal waste of time. I'd give it like an 8 out of 10. That's pretty good. Yeah, I was talking in the last update video that I made that I was kind of getting tired of giving out just like 5, 6, or worse out of 10 for all these updates. I feel like we started strong with the Stranger Things Chapter 2, and it just kind of fell off from there. And I was really feeling like we needed a pick-me-up, just a sign, something to give us hope that the game would be going in a great direction in 2026, and we would not continue on this slow slope downwards, and here it is. There's a dev stream that's including like 80 to 90% good changes that sound great on paper. We'll have to see how they're implemented. That's why it's not only an 8 out of 10 and not like a 9 or a 10 out of 10, because on paper they sound good. But we have found many a times in DBD that things that are planned or said to be a certain way don't actually end up that way. Remember when we delayed the Stranger Things Chapter 2 in order to work on game health, and we just did 2 very drastic anti-tunnel, anti-slug changes instead that didn't end up coming to the game? Yeah, stuff like that. So I'm going to stay safe with the 8 out of 10 and say, all of this sounds great on paper. If this all comes to the game in a healthy and good way that we see being presented to us, then yeah, it's going to be amazing. But how do you feel about the dev stream? Do you feel hopeful that the game might be going in a better direction, or do you think it's not as great as some people are touting it to be? Either way, let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for liking and subscribing today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But if I don't see you there, I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.